Hello everyone, this is Training and AutoML Working Group Community Call on 6th of October. This meeting will be recorded and published on YouTube, and this meeting is governed by the Kubeflow Code of Conduct. Welcome everyone. So do we have any new people here on the call who just want to introduce themselves to the community? Just maybe say hello.
Hi everyone, this is Karan. I'm from Cube Tools and I joined this meeting for the first time. So, hello everyone.
Nice to see you, Karan. Did you use Kubeflow before, or you just trying to, try to see what we're doing within the community in
I
AMs?
used Cube before.
Which components you're aware of in the ecosystem?
So mostly I use different data processing like pipelines and I use KFP in a normal data processing and the model training pipeline.
Yeah,
So, yeah, so I use the basics right now. And I haven't explored the model serving part of it yet, but I'd love to do that.
yeah. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else want to say hello?
Yeah, hi. I'd like to say hello as well.
Hey, Sad.
Hey, Andrew, how's it going? So, nice to meet you, everyone. I don't know if you can see me. Probably my camera is not working, but anyway. So my name is Saad. I work for Red Hat, and I'm looking forward to contribute to the Kubeflow training operator. I've been joining a couple of meetings here and there, but I'm looking forward to contribute to KFTO from now on, hopefully. Thanks.
That's great. Thanks for joining, Sad. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else before we can get started? All right, so then I think we can just go to the agenda again. Feel free to propose any topics you want to talk about. I think we probably want to talk about V2 progress that we've done for the last 2 weeks, and also maybe have a quick discussion around roadmap for 2025 for training operator. Maybe we will also speak about KT if we have time. But in general, I think we should establish the planning for this year. So let me maybe share my screen. Just a second. Yeah, so I think we've done pretty good progress. So before we jump to this, any maybe questions from the community that you want to talk about? All right, so in that case, I think we're kind of on track. I think our goal is to have MVP or maybe something working before the upcoming KubeCon. So really want to showcase one of the LLM runtimes, maybe do the simple fine tuning of one of the open source models. So I think the idea is to finalize a couple of critical items before we can showcase the MVP. But I think the goal is to release maybe an alpha version around November, and then we're going to maintain the V2 and V1 version for quite some time. So I think like the last time we've been discussing that probably we will maintain a separate branch for V1. So just the idea is on training operator, basically we right now have the 1.8 branch. I think we're going to create maybe release 1.9 branch, and we're going to maintain the V1 version of training operator there. So any bug fixes or patches we need to make, we probably would do there for V1, because the goal is to maintain it for at least maybe a year and a half, just until all the customers will migrate. And at the same time, in the master, we're going to develop the new version of training operator with, of course, with the releases. Yeah, so I think again, thanks for who actually volunteered to help us on some of the tasks, specifically, to provide the client Go libraries for training runtimes and the train job API. I think one of the significant change we've done with the runtime framework. So I don't know, do we want to maybe give a little bit of overview? What is it to the community? What do you think? How do you feel about it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So sorry for the rate improvement. So actually, I will I will complete my this 2248 PRs today. So after this PR is merged today, we can open some issues to implement some framework plugins or webhook implementation or something implementation issue.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Just to give an idea to the community, so if I open like our existing proposal for V2, I think our goal was to let me show you one of the diagrams. For example, this one. So basically, to distinguish train job from the runtime and make runtime configurable only for the platform engineers. And when the data scientists actually want to create the distributed training job or fine-tuning jobs, they just interact with the train job. And we're going to provide the Python SDK and also the kubectl access with the simple APIs, how they can tweak those jobs. And behind the scenes, we're going to spin up the job set, which will do distributed training, and also, some model initialization and dataset preparation. Like, for example, like in this diagram, I think we have another diagram which shows this. I think it's here. Yeah, so I think like the idea is to provide some sort of the pre-configured runtime where platform engineers can configure the properties which needs to be set before starting the training job. And we, like in the case of the fine-tuning use cases, we're planning to introduce something like this. So basically, when we have a multiple step of the jobs, when I have a storage initializer, we basically do the foundation model downloading and dataset downloading, and then we're going to have the PyTorch nodes job, which basically do the training across multiple nodes using the multi-node, multi-worker training. Yes, and we're also thinking about some sort of the checkpointing, but this is maybe for the future work, how we can simplify the checkpointing for the models during your FSDP training, for example, right? So I think like the main idea of runtime framework was to see how we can make runtimes extensible. I probably won't go like through the whole presentation. Let me share this slide. I think this is very interesting to take a look. If you're interested to see like what is actually the goal behind the runtime framework and understand it better. But the main idea is to make runtimes extendable from the external users. So basically, I think the main goal is to provide a set of extensions and a set of plugins that you can integrate to your runtime so you can extend it to support other things. For example, right now we only supporting like job sets within the runtime, but maybe we can think about in the future, maybe we're going to introduce Slurm runtime, which will create not job set, but the Slurm custom resource definition. Because for some users, maybe they don't want to use job set workload to do the training, right? So this runtime framework actually allows us to, first of all, register custom runtimes. Like maybe your company has a custom runtime you want to register, and also register the custom plugins. Like we have a plugins for gang scheduling, we have a plugin for like MPI, for Torch. And in the future, we're going to maybe introduce more plugins, which allows us to actually build those runtimes. Yeah. Anything specific you want to maybe mention about this framework that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so yeah, thanks for describing this framework details. So actually, so in the first iteration, we only support training runtime and cluster training runtime in this framework. So we will support to implement arbitrary runtime implementation in the second iteration after KubeCon. So actually, these framework runtime implementation details will not implement it today and in the first iteration. All right.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I think like the main idea is every runtime will have a separate phases. Like that is why we call it pipeline. So basically, it will have a startup phase when we do registration with the manager. Then we have a pre-execution phase where we define the validation. And then we have a main phase where we basically do the reconciliation and the orchestration of the workloads. So as long as your runtime implements all those stages and you can use our interfaces we implement, you can basically reduce your custom runtime. And this allows actually us make it. So I was thinking about it more actually in terms of HPC use cases. Maybe we can speak about it maybe next time when some folks from HPC will join us. But I think with this actually framework, we can also support not maybe train jobs. So because the thing is like train job right now, it's very specific to ML, right? So we have like, train job has an API for dataset, for model, for trainer, right? So it's very specific to like model training. But I was thinking about, because we've been discussing a little bit about how we can give the infrastructure for HPC users on Kubernetes to quickly, like spin up their jobs. So maybe I think if that would be useful for users, we can also maybe introduce some sort of, maybe not train job, but maybe we could call it, I don't know, HPC job, or some sort of the job which can do some simulations and other things, and that job can also maybe reference the HPC based runtimes, right? Maybe Flux runtime, right? Or like even Slurm runtime for people who want to do HPC on Kubernetes, right? Because I guess from the last batch of Kirub call on Kubernetes, there was a question around how we can make Kubernetes more accessible for HPC jobs. Because right now it's very hard, like to run those simulations using Kubernetes. So I feel like we can maybe even extend it to other CRD, not maybe train job, maybe we call it something else if we feel that train job it's not feasible maybe for API use cases, for example, right? So I'm not talking about API training, right? I'm more talking about, running simulations with API, right? Does it make sense to you?
Yeah. So actually, so we heard sometimes from HPC users. So but so the current training runtime framework does not expose to extensible for train job. So I guess in the alpha API stage, we can add both machine learning and HPC specific fields into train job. But during beta graduation for API version, we want to split train job into two custom resource. Each custom resource is only for a machine learning training and HPC use cases. Does this
Yeah.
sound good?
So I don't think I'm not sure if we should add the field in train job right now, because then we need to deprecate them, right? So I would say, because I think right now the train job API is sufficient to run HPC. It's just confusing, right? Because like if we take a look in the train job API here.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, train job spec has, trainer parameters, then it has dataset config, model config, and other parameters like pod spec override, which is just for system parameters, right? So like, very specific to model training, right? You can still use it for HPC. It will just be confusing, right? Yeah, but eventually I think maybe if, we have enough, user request that we need another CRD, we can just introduce it, right? And using the same model when you just can reference to the runtime, and then using we can think about how API might look like, for example, like which parameters needs to be overridden, like for HPC jobs, right? Yeah.
That makes sense. So we may want to correct feedbacks from HPC communities in the KubeCon, and so we can identify which train job fields is not needed in HPC, or which fields we should add into HPC job custom resource.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think like especially with given that our migration to MPI v2, so we need to give them a space for people who is MPI operator to think about how they can use it together with this new APIs, right? Yeah.
Sounds good.
Right. Any other questions from the community about it? Sounds good. And in that case, I think we have a few pending PRs. So this one, which was actually decided to rename training runtime reference to runtime reference to not confuse users, because again, in the future, right now we only support training runtime and cluster training runtime, but in the future maybe we'll support more custom resource definition. That is why it allows us to actually make it less confusing from the API standpoint. So basically here you're going to have the runtime reference instead of training runtime reference. That's it. Yeah, and I also need to work on the storage initializer, I guess, this week, and other pending PRs. Yeah, looks good. So, okay, any other questions for V2 progress overall? Yeah, let me put these PRs there. I think I know we all also want to discuss how we want to delegate tasks, right, to volunteers. I think someone actually reached out to me to ask how they can help. So Yuki, from your perspective, which task we can delegate after your PRs will be merged? Are we going to create new issues for that?
Yeah, sure. So after this meeting, so I will create dedicated issues. Maybe so 3 or 4 issues. Yeah. For example, so implementing so torch plugin implementation.
Yep.
Or yeah, something like
Yeah, maybe like getting validate. I know we already have one contributor who wanna work on validation. I think so can you take a look on the created issue already? So maybe we can just rename it to make it more explicit, right? Maybe, for example, we can modify something like, update the torch plugin or update the API plugin, right? Instead of, calling this create PyTorch multi-node distributed training runtime, right? Oh, this is separate. Okay, controller.
Yeah. So I will create separated issue and I will add the issue to this comprehensive issue.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, feel free to again rename some of the already created, right? If they need to be changed, right? Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I think I also want to share something about job set. So we have one pending cap to support execution, actually to extend startup policy. I think this will be interesting for folks to take a look. So since we're kind of leveraging the job set behind the scenes, we want to extend their functionality to support more advanced use cases, like for example, Elastic PyTorch or serial job execution. So this specifically will be useful when you want to execute multiple jobs within the sequence, right? So we don't want to support complex DAGs like workflows, right, with the job set, but we want to give job set functionality to actually execute the sequence of multiple jobs, because this is useful for fine-tuning, right? Because you usually have a job for initialization, which will do the model download and data set download. Then we have the another job which actually do training. So to avoid wasting GPU resources, we want to split it between multiple Kubernetes jobs within the job set, and we want to execute this these jobs within the sequence. So this cap actually allows us to leverage that functionality within the job set API. I can also share this job set startup policy. I think we call it right now.
Yeah, maybe so. So after the my training operator with first peer is merged, so I will take a look the job set enhancement proposal, and so I will push the cap. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the changes will be quite small, but again, I think if we don't have enough time to merge before the KubeCon, I have some ideas how we can, just use, maybe intermediate runtime when you have like init containers, right? and then one container to do actual training, right, on the master node. Yeah, that's
so I did not mean to implement this job set startup policy by
right.
myself. So I meant I will negotiate with Kubernetes batch working group and job set maintainers so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we can move this startup policy discussions forward this week or next week. Yeah.
yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I think it's fine. All right, any other questions for this? All right, so I think only maybe one question from my side I have that's, so I think we have this thread in the Slack channel in terms of the do we need init containers for PyTorch runtime? So the one question that I have, like, in case of PyTorch distributed training, right? And let me open one of these examples, right? So we're going to leverage torch run to actually run those training across multiple nodes, right? So I think my question is, if we don't have init container, and if we just have the actually the single job, which will spawn multiple pods, how are we going to define the master pod within um, this group? Because the thing is, like, I guess users only want to see logs from the node from the worker with rank 0. So I think my question is, like, how we, since the rank and world size, so world size, okay, but ranks, they're assigned automatically by the torch run. So how are we going to detect which pod is actually the master pod with the rank 0?
So if I understand correctly, so we can specify the rank 0, index 0 batch job as a master node, right?
Mhm. Yeah, because we run
So
in this job, right? Behind the
yeah,
scenes.
yeah. So actually, so today's job set, they provide torch distributed training example, right? And so they what
Yeah,
um
I saw this
yeah,
example, but I don't think this example actually check like which pod will be the master pod, isn't it?
right?
Uh, static examples, I think it's. Yeah, so it has master address, right? It has the master port, right? And the rank will be assigned from
Yeah,
job completion index, you mean, right?
yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah. So
Okay.
so as far as I know, we do not add init containers to
Mm-hmm.
job set. Yeah.
So do we know, in case of torch run, if I have the predefined rank, it will not be overridden, right, by the torch run?
But so in this example, so they use torture, right?
Yeah, they use torch run. I just okay, they're passing the node rank, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and they're passing the master port. Yeah, I think that might work, right? Because we kind of like predefine the rank to make sure like the master always will be the specific port, right? With the index 0. Yeah, I think that should work. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. Because usually torch run you can execute without passing any rank right now, right? And any world size. It will detect automatically. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
Yes, sounds good. All right, so let's move on. So in terms of the, again, roadmap, I don't know, like, so I have a few items there, right?
We
In the
have one question. So
you go, Dipank.
there is
Yep.
one more parameter, right? Rendezvous endpoint. So can't we mention that as for mentioning the master pod? There's one parameter, right, in torturing.
Which parameter?
Like rendezvous underscore endpoint, RDZV underscore endpoint.
Yeah, I think so. Rendezvous endpoint, I think it will assign automatically as well if you don't pass any value, right? Like
Yeah.
it is necessary to part rendezvous ID and rendezvous endpoint to the torch run, isn't it?
Okay, so you're saying it will pick by default?
Yeah. I think the rendezvous. So I think by default it takes the endpoint of the master, if I remember correctly. Like it will synchronize the processes across the one of the pods within the group, right?
Yeah.
So it's not necessary basically to pass the rendezvous endpoint. Let me see, torch run. Yeah, I think it will be localhost. So yeah, host node address and host node address. It's so if I remember correctly, you don't need to actually pass it. So by default, it will take the address of the head node of the master node, right? Which should be the node with the rank 0, right? Does that make sense?
Okay. So basically, we are not, so we want the functionality to set the master node, or is it we want that this rendezvous endpoint and master to be same?
So okay, so rendezvous is required for collective communication, right?
Yeah.
So since you synchronize those processes on the master, right, on the pod with the rank, not pod, we should say like GPU with the rank 0, right? So yeah, with the rank 0 worker, I think they call it. And if we don't pass it, they will automatically assign it to the address of the pod, of the basically master pod, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I remember I was running the torch run without rendezvous, even rendezvous ID. I was just passing torch run, a number of nodes, a num-proc per node, and everything was working fine.
Okay.
With a multi-node, multi-worker training. So even this rendezvous ID is not necessary from my knowledge. Like you don't need to pass it. Yeah, let's see. I think the job completion index looks good to me because I think like the main idea is to make sure like the master is always running on a specific pod because we will collect the logs, right, and other things to the user, right? So this I guess needs to be passed. All right. Yeah, let me jump to this issue. So I think the main goal for 2025 for us, I guess, to implement this V2 APIs. I think we still have some pending issue on the roadmap. Like for example, supporting JAX. So I know we already support JAX in V1. We even have one of the examples, which is a very simple example, but still you can leverage the JAX training on CPUs here. So let me share it. So we have a new instance called JAX job, which actually do distribute training for JAX. And we're only running like this on the multiple workers within the single CRD. So take a look at this example. We're also going to have the presentation from Sandipan sometime on this meeting and maybe in the Kubeflow community call about this project. But I think like we want to also ask the community to test this CRD and maybe tell us a feedback about maybe TPU usage, because I think JAX is very popular for TPU training on TPU. And unfortunately, we just don't have right now the cluster to test this out. But we just want to see how this CRD works for you. And in the V2, we're planning to actually also create the JAX runtime and support JAX like any other framework. Yeah, so other things around the roadmap. Yes, we still, again, we're going to push a lot of changes to the job set. Like as I mentioned before, like Elastic capabilities and the other like API extensions. For the SDK, we continue trying to improve the SDK. I think for the V2 SDK will play the crucial role in terms of how users actually interact with those CRDs. Because we see more and more, data scientists that just don't want to use kubectl and they don't want to use YAMLs. So we try to see how the SDK could be much more useful. Even automate the image building, automate the how you can move the code from the user, maybe Jupyter Lab, to the distributed training job without worrying about the image. Like similar how you use KFP today. with the different, capabilities there. Yeah, and everything that's around LLMs, will be supported in V2, and the API consolidation for training operator also will be, I think, part of this V2 migration. Anything else on the roadmap you think we should talk about? Any specifics? All right. So in that case, for the API, I think Yuki, you planning to have a release, right?
Yeah, sure. So actually, so I will release the MPI operator be 0.6.0 after this meeting. Almost works for releasing already completed. So this is just information for community. Yeah. So since this be 0.6, we will support round policy managed by feature inspired by batch B1 job core Kubernetes API. This allows us to dispatch API jobs to the multiple clusters powered by multi-queue feature. And yeah, actually, so in the next training operator release, we will also the manage by feature in the Python job, TF job, and other all frameworks. But today we support managed by feature only in MPI job B2, not MPI job B1. And so additionally, so we upgraded Kubernetes libraries in MPI operator to be 1.31. This allows us to implement DRA device plugins in the external repository. This means so maybe so any vendors will plan to provide dynamic resource allocation plugins to support vendor specific devices in Kubernetes world. And so we upgraded MPI container image Debian version to bookworm. So by this upgrading, so we upgrade Open MPI version to 4.1.4 and MPI CH version to 4.0.2. Yeah, all right. If you have any bugs or regressions, please let us know. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I think it looks good. I think so maybe we should release the training operator right now to support managed by for Q, because the PR already been merged, right?
Yeah, but so in the training operator repository, the feature is not released and exposed as a version, semantic version.
Oh, what do you mean exactly?
Yeah. So actually, so this training operator managed by feature can be used only when they install the master branch training operator.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe we should release it right now, like make it, new release branch called release 1.9 branch, right? So then
you mean separate from Kubeflow release cycle?
yeah, we don't need to follow Kubeflow release cycle, right? We can even release it right now, like if you
I
think
see.
this is beneficial.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
I think so. Let's maybe complete this initial. So what is your plan, Yuki? So I guess like we need to push some changes for V2 and we need to have a final release branch for the V1, right? Which we'll call it release like hyphen 1.9, right? This will be the final release for training operator, right? V1. So if for any other bug fixes or patches, do we need to push them to this release branch, right? In addition to after the first release of 1.9.0, right?
Yeah. So in that case, if we find any bugs and regressions for training operator B1 after we release B1.9, we will cut only patch version for B1.9, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I think my thinking was we only will create, new release branch called release 1.9, and that will be the final branch for all the V1 training operator, right?
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah.
John, any concerns with this, like from your perspective? Like, we've never had 1.10 release, right, of training operator.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Do you see any?
Yeah, I think we have to put that in the documentation. I think for long time we had put. I think in the current README, did we change that for the initial TF job operator? Yeah. Oh, we have removed that. For a long time, we actually had pointers to the initial TF job operator, and then we said for the newer training operator, you have to use a different version. I think we have to put that in the README as well.
Yeah, I think we removed it. So last time I updated README, I removed this.
Right. Yeah, I think very similar to that, we can add that README. Looks good.
Yeah. So similar to this, you suggested on the master branch to say if you want to use V1, you need to go to release branch, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm okay. So in that case, we will release this managed by feature, right? I just don't know how critical it is for the end users. If you like,
I think I think the manage by feature will not affect significantly changes on existing workloads, because even when we do not specify managed by fields, so the existing running Kubeflow jobs still are managed by upstream training operator. This managed by feature is useful only for Q multi-Q integration.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
So maybe like around November, we can create this release branch for V1 called release 1.9.
Yeah. Maybe we will release the B1.9 in the Kubeflow.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I guess we need to release the 1.9.0, right, around this time. Yeah, so in that case, I mean, I think it's fine to wait until after the KubeCon, but let's see what the progress for V2 will be, right? Because I don't want for us to, like be blocked on the progress to do this release since it is not urgent, right?
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So any other topics you want to talk about? Yeah, I think we have roadmap planning here from the release perspective, right? Yeah, I think it was good. So in that case, I guess let's continue working on the V2. If you want to help us, let me know. We have, again, I guess, like as you can mention, after the merging this runtime PR, we're going to create some issues that, you can help us to work on. Additionally, again, if you want to get onboarded to the project, let me know. I can also help you to understand how, like you can spin up this writing, like, reading the developer guide, and also try to see how we can contribute there. Yeah, right. Any other last questions, comments?
Just quick questions. So
Good.
after the training operator V2 being released, the V1 will only be maintained like for a couple of months, 1 year and several months.
No, I think so. I think it depends on the customers and the users. So I think the goal is, again, we don't have this, strict timeline right now, right? So I think it depends on the adoption of the new version of APIs. And if we need to maybe maintain it for 2 years, I think it's fine for us to maintain it for 2 years, right? But like in the Kubeflow, I understand like, majority of users of training operator probably didn't use Kubeflow distribution, right? They just installed standalone. So if we get a lot of feedback that we want to like maintain this for quite some time, we can, postpone it. But I think the goal is to migrate the majority of customers in the next year to the V2.
Got it.
Yeah, especially given like the use cases from the fine-tuning use cases, right? Because I know there is still a lot of, many people who do traditional ML, but the majority of, our users, they do fine-tuning. So I think this will significantly simplify the fine-tuning on a training operator using these new APIs. Especially if we're going to provide the blueprints for the, state-of-the-art models you want to use, right?
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Look forward to it. Thank you.
So actually, so I'm wondering if we can define criteria to stop B1 API support after Bits release. So for example, after we implemented all training frameworks in the Bits API, and or we graduate the train job API version to beta, we stop to maintain B1 even when there are any bugs and regression, something, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the criteria, how we can define them?
Now I do not have any concrete criteria. So yeah, so I want to discuss about this later.
Okay. Yeah. So again, I think like the main point is like we want to hear feedback from users. We want users to come to those calls and tell us like for the features we want to support. For example, like, we recently deprecated MX job, MXNet, right? Because MXNet was deprecated by Apache. Similar to this, like we have XGBoost job, for example, like how many actually users use XGBoost job today, right? Do we need to provide runtime for XGBoost? Even TensorFlow, I know we still have some people for TensorFlow, but like what kind of features from TensorFlow do you want to see, right? Do you want to see features of parameter servers and chiefs and other things around TensorFlow? So this, we want to hear the feedback and the feature requests from actual end users. Because on the PyTorch is clear, but on other frameworks, we need to see, right? Yep.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions before Joe? Going once, going twice. All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much for your time then. See you in 2 weeks. Let me know if you have any other follow-up questions in Slack, and see you again soon. Thanks, everyone. See you around.
See you.